Hello everyone, and welcome back to another 5-minute build, today featuring Cuirass of the Falling Star on the Arc Titan. This build will give us a high DPS Thundercrash capable of delivering high amounts of damage to a boss or being a one-shot against champions, and it also features an infinite ability loop with the power of creating huge amounts of supercharge. I would just like to take a moment to thank everyone who has supported me over the past few months, as we have recently surpassed 100 subscribers on the channel, and I could not be more grateful for the support, and I can't wait to see where this goes. Anyway, kicking off the build is the Thundercrash Super for obvious reasons, the Thruster class ability for its short cooldown and lack of animation as a lateral dodge, which will become an essential part of this build. I've chosen to go for the Thunderclap melee for its effectiveness against groups of enemies and damage against single targets, but this is flexible to your preference. The grenade I've chosen for this build is the Pulse Grenade, and we are going to pair it with our first aspect, Touch of Thunder. This aspect will give our grenade the ability to create ionic traces. These ionic traces will be a big part of our ability regen loop for this build. Our second aspect is Knockout, granting us a buffed melee when critically wounding or breaking a target's shield. But more importantly, this aspect grants health regen and the ability to become amplified when defeating targets of our melee, giving us some extra survivability for this build. For the fragments, I've chosen to boost the ionic trace production to the max and making our grenades even more deadly, since grenades will end up being the main way we build up supercharge. Our first fragment is Spark of Magnitude, giving our pulse grenades an extended duration, meaning we can create even more ionic traces and defeat more adds. Our next fragment is Spark of Shock, causing our grenades to jolt targets, paired with Spark of Ions, where defeating a jolted target creates an ionic trace. The final aspect I've decided to go with is Spark of Discharge, causing our arc weapon final blows to create ionic traces, which ends up being amazing when paired with an arc machine gun or grenade launcher. However, if arc weapons don't make sense for a particular activity, you can swap this out for Spark of Resistance for more survivability. All these ionic traces will give us our abilities back almost instantly, meaning we can spam grenades to clear out groups of adds or deal damage to a higher tier enemy. A weapon I found to be extremely fun to use with this build is Delicate Tomb, which also creates ionic traces, and with the catalyst is automatically reloaded when collecting traces, giving it amazing synergy with this build so far. Our armor exotic is Cuirass of the Falling Star with its glorious charged trait, granting our super an extra 100% of damage and an overshield on deactivation. This gives us around 350,000 damage on Thundercrash hits, making it a one-shot against champions and a great option against bosses. During the current season, Season 18, now you can boost this damage up to 600,000 damage with the Thunderous Retort seasonal mod, but I've decided not to include it in this build since the season is basically over. Now it's time to cover what mods are in this build. These mods are going to be the catalyst to generating huge amounts of supercharge, meaning we can consistently use our super on champions and bosses in lost sectors, nightfalls and dungeons. For our major mods, we are using Elemental Wells for passive benefits and ability recharge, starting with Elemental Ordnance and Armament to create wells, paired with Bountiful Wells to double our well production. These wells will feed into Font of Wisdom for a permanent increase to intellect. I've also decided to use Seeking Wells, meaning I don't have to worry about collecting wells on the floor. Now for the mod that will create huge amounts of supercharge, I'm running 2 sets of Ashes to Assets, converting grenade kills into super energy, which scales depending on the enemy defeated. This is why it's important to have an ability loop that allows for 100% grenade uptime, with a grenade that can clear large amounts of adds. In my testing, I've recovered over 40% of my super from a single grenade, making Thundercrash extremely easy to acquire. For some minor mods, I've gone for Impact Induction on the arms for grenade energy when causing melee damage. However, you can remove this mod if you need champion mods for an activity. I'm also running Innovation mods for reduced grenade cooldown on an Orb of Power pickup, and 2 bomber mods for grenade energy when using our class ability. This gives us 20% of our grenade back, and since the thruster ability comes back so fast, we can regain grenade energy at an alarming rate. This build really is amazing for the Thundercrash Titan, whether you're in some low level content like Altar of Sorrows or Legend Lost sectors and dungeons. You have an infinite supply of grenades for ad clearing, and an easily obtained high damage super for champions or bosses. If you enjoyed this build showcase, please consider giving this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more Destiny builds every week, and I'll see you in the next one.